Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Anomalisa. Anomalisa is a beautiful, honest, heart-wrenching, deconstructionist, simple, and complex movie that hits you, or at least hit me, like any great Charlie Kaufman movie does. And usually when I leave a Charlie Kaufman movie, I almost feel sometimes like I'm high or just numb because of what I just witnessed on screen. Something so emotional and surreal and smart mixed all together to make a really great story and a really great film. And Anomalisa continues that tradition. And with Anomalisa, I both felt sad, but also like I had seen something that I didn't think a lot of stories did. And the few that had struck me before and left me in a daze for days. I could have easily watched it 3 more times. Right when it ended, it's simple and you won't leave like going, what was that? You'll understand it, but there's so much going on. There's a lot of smart, intelligent storytelling and filmmaking going on. And I was kind of left shocked and not even sure. I mean, I knew it was good, but not sure how I fully felt about it because I needed time to think. And that's one of the glorious things about Charlie Kaufman is usually when I see his films, it leaves me almost astonishment but wonder at what I saw, but almost not even sure how to take it down. Because it's like things I've seen before, but he does so many different things with it that it just feels completely different. And that if someone brings up, oh, it's like this film, I'm like, oh yeah. Like it doesn't occur to me immediately because I'm just so swept up in it. As many movies as I watch, that doesn't happen as much as it used to. And I was worried maybe it wouldn't. And even though this film starts slow and feels simple and I wasn't sure exactly what it was doing, when it hit me hard like all his films do. And it was just a wonder of not just an animated film, but a film in general. It reminds me again how great of a screenwriter he is. A man named Michael Stone, who's voiced by David Twallis, I think, who is on a business trip to Cincinnati where he's going to speak at a convention for customer service professionals because he wrote a book and he's a very respected author. And the book's name is How May I Help You Help Them? And he's very famous, and when he walks by, people go, oh, that's Michael Stone and all this stuff. And he's very saddened by the monotony of life. He only hears everyone in this film who's not him is voiced by Tom Noonan, and they all sound like Tom Noonan and almost have the same face, and you can tell he's just almost like bored of people, like he can't get into people. There's such a divide because everyone's the same and it's boring to him. And then while he's at his hotel on the first night, after he gets out of the shower, he hears a different voice, a woman named Lisa, voiced by Jennifer Jason Leigh, and he runs out and finds her and has drinks with her and her friend and starts to fall in love with her and break down the monotony of his life and start to feel again through this relationship as he's trying to find himself and find meaning in his life once again. When you have a film that's animated and the film isn't like a story about a kid training a dragon and it doesn't feel like something that would immediately be animated, the question is, well, why is this animated? And when I was watching Anomalisa, I semi-wonder that, but I thought there's probably more to it, like in Only Yesterday or something like that. And immediately when I heard the Tom Noonan voice that goes throughout it, that would not work in a live-action film. That would be very cheesy and stupid and would really take you out of it. But for an animated film, it actually really works. It really works very well. And it really captures what he's stuck in and how he feels about life. And this film reminded me a lot of the South Park episode where Stan, every time he'd listen to music, it would just sound like someone taking a shit. Or if he'd watch a movie, it would just be shitty and he just hated everything. And this reminded me of that in a way that I think there's a lot of times in life you can get stuck in that and think everyone's the same and be so bored and lose your empathy and lose your understanding of other people. And some people never come out of it. Some people who I'm friends with, I feel like never come out of it. They just feel like life is this way and they're bored by it and nothing surprises them anymore. And they've lost that love of life because of either a traumatic experience or just through boredom through their lifestyle. And Anomalisa captures that probably as well as that South Park episode, but in a much different way, obviously. I really liked that idea because it first kind of sneaks up on you. They don't call it out immediately. The film's kind of slow, so eventually you're like, wait, why do all these people sound the same? And then you start to realize, like, this guy isn't seeing anything new in anyone. It's sad when you can't break out of that, and seeing that reflected on screen almost feels a little too real for me in a way. I almost am just shocked by someone capturing that, because I'm like, sometimes I have felt like that, and sometimes it feels like I'll never get out of it. But it also criticizes it. That's extremely narcissistic, to feel almost a superiority to other people, almost to feel you're more different than anyone. And that's kind of Charlie Kaufman there, is that he lets you understand him, lets you understand that character, lets you understand his point of view, lets you sympathize with him, but also goes, yeah, but this guy's kind of a dick. And it gives a more multi-dimensional view to a character. When I realized he was a kind of a dick, it doesn't upset you. You're like, no, that guy's not a jerk. I like that guy. But it's like, I like him, but he is an asshole. And he captures that almost perfectly in this film. But also how the view of kind of the idea, almost like the manic pixie dream girl ideal that Lisa, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, is doing in this film, in which he's really using her as his way to transform through how bored he is at life. The whole idea that you'll find this woman and she'll open your eyes and you'll love life again and everything like that. And using that in a way that shows like he's probably not going to change through her, how kind of truly lame that is and truly sad that is, and how he's completely not almost seeing her in some regard to see himself. I've heard this kind of compared to like Charlie Kaufman's Up in the Air, Lost in Translation. And the difference of those films is those films leave you with some hope. Anomalisa doesn't give you an answer. He's gonna have to deal with how he feels about life, or he's just going to have to keep living it that way and deal with it. And that's sad. That's the truth of growing up, is like, if you don't like this life, you can either just stick with it and just deal, or you can change it. Anomalisa makes me think about that a lot. It makes me think about how you just get stuck in your job, your lifestyle, just the comfortable nature of doing the same thing, and how it can kind of ruin you in some ways and just make you drained, and you're not sure how to get out of it. And I think it's probably the more honest version of that story. Did Bill Murray go home to his wife and rejuvenate his relationship, or run off with Scarlett Johansson? No. Did George Clooney change who he was? Not really. This is the honesty of humanity in a way that is both sad and brutal. That's why when I see his films, I'm always just shocked, because I can't believe what's hitting me. This is definitely a fantasy and oddly surreal and strange, but it's also very naked in its honesty. That's something that I think a lot of writers would like to believe they could do, but Charlie Kaufman does perfectly. And I think his style works so well with animation, I kind of wish he was always working with animation. This is his second film he directed after Schenectady, New York. He directed with Duke Johnson. This was made by Starburns Industries, which is Dan Harmon's production company, with Dino Stamatopoulos. Animation is very good, and having seen the Community Christmas special and other things that Duke Johnson has done and Starburns Industries has done with stop motion, this is so far and ahead. Technical wise, this is such a huge leap forward. It's amazing. I mean, it just looks so fluid, and they felt like they were breathing, and they felt like they were people. The design is a little off-putting at first. All the puppets were made in a 3D printer, actually. All the characters have these lines going from their eyes like this, and then their bottom half of their jaw is another piece. It feels a little odd at first, but then it feels very real. You kind of just accept it, and you accept this world. It's probably one of the best stop motion films I've seen in a decade, just how great the animation was. But I think because it's not trying to make a crazy world, it's just trying to be real people. Realism in animation usually really does not work. It's pretty annoying and stylistically boring. It's more about technique and craft rather than storytelling. And in this, there's a reason for it, so I think it works very well. He got such great performances from David Chwalis, who most of you probably know as Harry Potter as Professor Lupin. Worked in Mike Leigh films and has a pretty prestigious acting career. This is actually based on a play Charlie Kaufman wrote. Well, it's a sound play, which sounds pretty weird to me. I don't understand what that is entirely. All the people who do the voices in this film did the voices for that sound play. And David Chwalis shows how great of an actor he always is. He's very good at being emotionally honest, but guarded, and also a little full of himself, but falling into the fantasy of it all. Jennifer Jason Leigh is wonderful in this movie. Again, this isn't a manic pixie dream girl, but she plays her like someone who, I mean, she wasn't in a relationship for 8 years, suddenly meets this guy guy. Her character had traveled to see him speak, and they came to this fancy hotel because it was kind of their vacation. She has a real realness to the character and a shyness that plays very well that Jennifer Jason Leigh's always had. If you look back at Fast Times at Ridgemont High, she had that show. She plays that shyness very well when she does play it, and she played in a very real, like, I almost felt like they found a hometown girl who's very shy. Like, she played in a very real, shy way that really puts you there. When they were together, there's a real uncomfortableness. It almost makes you feel like you're on an uncomfortable date and such. Tom Noonan might be the real star of this movie. I think he has the most lines. But when he does women or kids, he changes the pitch in his voice, but he's basically doing the same kind of voice. But he was very good. Obviously, the use of him is very surreal because everyone sounds like him. They understood how his monotone kind of voice is supposed to be boring and not interesting to Michael Stone. This film's just as funny as Charlie Kaufman usually is, and it's just as depressing, and it's just as emotionally raw. It's just one of those simple films that you always hear about that you're like, that can't be that interesting. A guy going to a hotel in Cincinnati, and it has all this life to it. And I think Kaufman again shows he's almost like a master at how he's able to make these strange and emotional films that are deeper than at first glance. And I think that's just amazing. I don't even know how to classify Kaufman a lot of the times. Kaufman's one of the few live action directors who brings the same kind of script and the same kind of acting that he normally does in a live action film and brings it to animation. Usually if you're going between the two, you do kind of different styles or a funnier style for animation, and you're almost not the same director unless you're Brad Bird. Kaufman was seamlessly able to make that transition, and in a very beautiful, amazing way. Originally he didn't want to make this into a movie. I wasn't sure if it would work, but boy does it ever work. It's one of the most emotionally honest films. It's a very human movie. It probably is more human than most movies, and there aren't humans in it. I don't know if this movie's really for most people, but usually when I see his films, they're just so good I kind of don't care. I have such a connection to them. I'm like, this is a masterpiece. This is a great movie. It almost feels like a character study. I mean, a lot of his films do, but this one more so than ever. But also like an intellectual character study. It's nice to say, oh, it's a character study, and make it sound like it's about acting. There is great acting in this. It really studies the character, not just so you understand who they are, but you're almost deconstructing them. You're following them as a protagonist. You're agreeing with them as a protagonist. You're disagreeing with them as a protagonist. You're seeing the faults in them. The character of Michael Stone might be one of the most developed characters I've seen on screen this year in a very fleshed out, beautiful way. Kaufman wrote this film in a way that I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know when it was going to end until a couple minutes before the last scene. He just took me away. I feel like I should talk about this film longer, but almost like leaves me dumbfounded and trying to say anything. It's almost like sad because you realize like, oh my God, like I didn't think anyone would say that. I thought of the Tom Noonan voice and how oftentimes I will be friends with someone and we'll be talking about something and it'll just be like a brick wall and they'll just be like, no, to some idea or some movie I was really into, and they'll just hate it and I'll like want to talk about it and I'll just be like, nope. Or even if it was good and they're like, yep, it was good. I'm like, oh, well, did you like these ideas that was going on throughout? And like, yep, it was good. It's probably a movie because it's me, but I've heard that Tom Noonan voice in people, and as surreal as it sounds, it's not surreal. It's very real, because then you just go, oh, you're just one of these people. You're just someone. You're not this person I thought I could have this attachment to. Seeing him see his wife that way, seeing him see his kid that way, it's almost like horrifying, but it's also real. In the way that that's what happens with relationships with people. You come to a certain point, you go, you're not as interesting and as fun as I thought you were. To show that and what that would be like to see everyone that way, it's spooky, but it's also like a very real side of things. You can even have it when you're a kid in school and, you know, one day you're friends with everyone and the next day you realize how full of shit everyone is. Just that glimmer of hope that Lisa gives off, you go way too crazy on. But this film is also saying like, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you should be examining why you're viewing people that way, or have a healthier look on life, or get better friends. It's just such an interesting movie. It's everything you like about Kaufman. He's probably the greatest screenwriter of our era. He's becoming one of the more interesting and challenging directors of our era, and there's not a lot of films that can strike you emotionally, but also leave you thinking in such such a way. It's a glorious, beautiful movie. It can really permeate your brain and your soul in such a way that most movies probably hope to do, but don't have the ambition and the surrealism that Kaufman does. This is an incredibly ambitious film that works on all the ambition that it's putting out. It's like an ambitious story movie that's emotionally raw. Make me look both inward at how I view humanity, but also make me doubt outward at humanity itself. That's a crazy topsy-turvy way to leave a movie, and makes me rejuvenated in the power of cinema and also dumbfounded at what I just watched. So if you have seen Anomalisa and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.